Alright, howdy, welcome back. In this one, we're going to go over a little bit of IK chains. Now, this is the model I did in the last one. I just added the arms and the head. So, let me undo this real quick. When we drew the legs, I said we wanted a slight curve in them just because it would make it easier when we put in an IK chain. So, let's get into it. The IK handle tool. Inverse Kinematics. You can kind of think of it as drawing ligaments between joints so that it will control all the joints in between for you. Not necessarily the most natural looking motion, but it gets the job done, and it gets the job done a lot faster than if you were to manipulate them manually. So I'm going to grab the IK handle tool. I'm going to select the first joint that I'm going to work with, which will be my left hip, and I'm going to connect that to the left ankle. You can see it draws this line and it makes an IK handle. Let's see, this little brown three-pointed object. Now if I grab that, now watch what happens when I move this. Okay, remember before I had to rotate this joint, and then I had to rotate this joint, and then I'd have to rotate the ankle. Well, once I've got IK in there, if I grab my IK handle and move it around, it controls the joints in between. So, if he lifts his leg, it knows, okay, well, the knee is going to have to bend this way and whatever. So it makes things a lot easier for animating walk cycles and animating movement and such. This is one of the things you may want to make a control for, so that you don't have to try and find the handle, the little IK handle, every time. I mean, you can go into your outliner and grab it. Here it's not that hard for me to grab it, but just to make things easier and faster, that's our job. One other thing I want to point out to you is if I grab the whole skeleton, because the whole skeleton's bound, and I move him, he slides forward. Okay. If I'm doing something like a walk cycle, I can select this IK handle, and I can go into my attribute editor. Okay, and under IK handle attributes, there's a setting called stickiness. If I turn stickiness on, if I turn sticky on, and I move, okay, I move my joint. Let's see, he's gonna take a step. No, he's stepping on a stair or something. Use your imagination here. And I grab the rest of his skeleton and I move it. Okay, so I can move the rest of his skeleton, but his leg will stay there, or pointed, his IK chain stays rooted to that spot, which is extremely helpful when you're doing a walk cycle. You can put his foot down, boom, okay, and then you'd move his body forward. Obviously you'd have to work with rotation of his foot, you'd put in more chains and whatever. And then you'd move this one, which I don't have an IK chain in yet. But again, grab the IK tool, IK handle tool, grab his hip, click his ankle, there I've got an IK chain. Now mind you, I'm not actually animating this, I'm just showing you for movie purposes. But then we've got that one, and then his body would move forward. Oh, guess what I forgot to do? Gotta grab my IK handle. Gotta go to handle attributes, turn on sticky. Okay, now I can move his body. Again, not the most natural walk cycle in the world, but it's better than having to move him and then move his legs, and then, for instance, if I turn sticky off, select where my entire skeleton is rooted to. You can find this out in the outliner, you see whichever one's on top. But instead of having to move him, okay, move him, and then grab his IK handle and move it, and then move his body, because his body would move forward when he walks, but then I have to move his leg back because it wouldn't slide along the ground. Pain in the neck. So, stickiness. Want to point that out. Another thing that I'm going to point out right now is when I put the skeleton in, I wanted to point something out. If you draw a bone in the wrong place or really far away, this may end up badly, but you can see the joint gets huge. That's, if nothing else, it's incredibly annoying. Can also mess with your skin binding. So I just wanted to point out that you can select the joint, and in the attribute editor under that joint, there's the joint menu set, or the joint little section here. You can put the radius down. I think the radius for my joints on this guy is 0.519. I could have been wrong, but that'll make the joint smaller again. If you're working with a lot of joints in a really tiny space, you may just set the radius down even further. For instance, if this guy had hands to work with, that's a nightmare in and of itself, just because there's so many bones in the hand. So, I don't know, play with those, make your own models. They can be one solid shape, just put out a cube and then subdivide it and draw out some legs, draw out some arms, just so you can kind of play with this and see how the skeletons react to everything. And I'll probably go into a little bit more depth with skeletons in the next movie, working on things like mechanical type things where instead of joints bending, instead of skin bending around the bones, you'd have pieces rotating over each other. Sounds a little confusing, but we'll see how motivated I am for the next one. So, other than that, play with that, and peace out.